When a quiet new girl gets humiliated in front of the whole cafeteria, everyone thinks it's just another high school bully story, until the cameras start rolling. 3 seconds, one push, and the video goes viral.
Here we go again.
But the internet doesn't just see a fight, they recognize a face. The daughter of one of the most famous action stars on the planet, hiding in plain sight. Now everyone's asking the same question: what's she doing here, and what happens when her father finds out? Because if you think the bully picked the wrong girl, you haven't seen what happens when Vin Diesel's daughter stops pretending to be normal. Before we begin, like, comment, share, and subscribe and turn on notifications, so whenever we drop a video, you will be the first to see it. Vin Diesel once said that some promises never fade, they just simmer quietly, like a sauce on low heat, waiting for the right moment to be stirred again. Tonight, that promise still lingers in the air of a small Italian restaurant in Rosewood, the kind of town where people still greet each other by name and where the scent of basil and tomato can stop time for a second. 5 years ago, this place, Louise's Table, opened its doors for the first time. And though no one in Rosewood knew it, Vin Diesel was the man who made it possible. He hadn't wanted the fame to follow him here. This wasn't about movie stars or headlines. This was about her, his mother, Louisa. The woman who taught him that food wasn't just something you made. It was something you gave. He could still see it, his mother's hands, dusted with flour, moving rhythmically across the counter of their old kitchen. Her laughter filled the space louder than any radio. "Never rush the sauce," she'd say. "Patience makes flavor." Same goes for people. She had cooked through her sickness, even when her body trembled. On her hardest days, she'd whisper, "As long as someone's fed, I'm still doing what I'm meant to do." When she passed, Vin didn't cry right away. Instead, he cooked her favorite meal, linguine with lemon cream and roasted garlic, and ate it alone. By the time the last bite was gone, he knew what he had to do. He bought a building in Rosewood, the town she'd grown up in but left when she was 19. No press releases. No social media buzz. Just quiet construction, brick by brick, until Louise's Table opened its doors on a warm Friday evening in May. He had stood outside that first night, hidden in plain sight. Baseball cap, hoodie, no entourage. Just a son watching strangers step into the world his mother dreamed of. Inside, a local band played soft jazz. A little girl twirled in front of her parents' table while a waiter laughed and handed her a breadstick like a magic wand. The smell of truffle oil floated through the room. And in the corner, an elderly woman closed her eyes at the first bite of lasagna and murmured, "Just like home." That was all he needed to hear. He didn't go inside. He just leaned against his car, letting the warmth from the windows spill out onto the street. For the first time in years, he felt peace. The restaurant wasn't just surviving, it was alive. Now, 5 years later, the restaurant thrives without anyone knowing who owns it. Locals say it's the heart of Rosewood, the kind of place where people celebrate birthdays, first dates, and quiet Tuesdays alike. But lately, something's been bothering him. Whispers from the management team about efficiency over empathy. A new floor supervisor who's more interested in profits than people. And somewhere in his gut, that quiet fear that maybe, just maybe, the heart of Louise's Table was fading. That's why he's coming back. Not as Vin Diesel the actor. Not as the hidden owner. But as an ordinary man with a fake beard, a worn baseball cap, and a question only he can answer. Does the soul of this place still live here, or has it been replaced by routine? The car hums softly beneath the moonlight as he pulls up to the curb outside Louise's Table once more. From the window, he sees laughter, light, the clinking of glasses. But behind it, something feels different, colder, faster. He exhales, steadying himself. Tonight, he isn't the man who built it. He's the man who's about to find out if it still remembers why it was built. He steps out of the car, pulls the cap low over his eyes, and walks toward the door. The host smiles. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Louise's Table. Do you have a reservation?" Vin pauses. His eyes sweep across the restaurant floor. And then, just before he answers, he sees something at the back of the room, something that makes him freeze. Rain came down like a quiet confession over Rosewood that Thursday night. The kind of rain that blurs headlights and memories alike. Vin Diesel sat in his garage, staring at his reflection in the visor mirror. A fake beard. Wireframe glasses. A weathered jacket that smelled faintly of gasoline and solitude. He looked nothing like the man on billboards or movie posters. That was the point. Earlier that week, he'd been scrolling through online reviews of Louise's Table, his mother's legacy, his secret heart project, and one comment stopped him cold. Used to feel like family here. Now it just feels like business. That single line hit harder than any critic's review ever could. Family. That was supposed to be the soul of the place. If someone felt it was gone, maybe it wasn't just a review. Maybe it was a warning. So here he was, pulling the disguise tighter, turning anonymity into armor. He didn't tell his manager he was coming. He didn't want polite service for a celebrity. He wanted the truth. The highway from LA to Rosewood stretched like a ribbon of wet asphalt, glistening beneath passing headlights. The rhythmic slap of windshield wipers kept time with his heartbeat. Every few miles, he'd glance at the passenger seat, empty except for a photo of his mother taped inside the glove box. "Wish you were riding shotgun tonight, Ma," he muttered. "You'd probably tell me I'm overthinking again." She always did. But the truth was, he wasn't overthinking. Something had changed. He could feel it like a crack under fresh paint. As the miles rolled by, the city lights faded into the soft hum of small-town streets. When he finally reached Rosewood, the rain had slowed to a mist. Street lamps flickered across wet cobblestones. And there it was. Louise's Table. Still standing proud on the corner of Willow and Main, modest, glowing, alive. The brick walls glistened with rain. The golden light from inside spilled across the sidewalk, carrying with it the faint, familiar scent of roasted garlic and warm bread. For a moment, pride washed over him. He built something beautiful. Something that lasted. But underneath that pride, a knot of nervousness pulled tight. Because what if that reviewer was right? He parked across the street, engine idling. Through the fogged windshield, he could see laughter inside, servers weaving between tables, guests raising glasses, a birthday candle flickering at one corner table. It all looked perfect. And yet, there was something off. A young man at the host stand gestured impatiently to an older customer, waving him aside. The man looked confused, embarrassed. The warmth Vin remembered seemed to dim with every second he watched. Vin turned off the car. The rain whispered against the glass. He took a breath, grabbed his cap, and stepped out into the drizzle. By the time he crossed the street and reached the front door, the host was gone, and in his place stood a young waitress with tired eyes and a kind smile, helping the same old man find a seat. Vin froze, one hand on the door handle. Something told him this night was about to change everything. The bell above the door chimed softly as Vin stepped into Louise's Table, his mother's dream, brought to life in brick and wood and now humming with the low murmur of half-filled tables. He paused at the entrance. The familiar scent of basil and baked bread hit him instantly. For a second, it was 20 years ago again, him as a boy, standing in the kitchen while his mother hummed to Dean Martin and stirred sauce that always tasted like Sunday. But the nostalgia broke quickly. The place looked the same, yet somehow, different. The warm amber lights still hung from the beams, the vintage family photos still lined the walls, the rustic charm still breathed in every detail. But the energy, that invisible heartbeat, felt quieter. Like someone had turned the volume of the soul down a notch. A hostess guided him to a booth near the corner. "Here okay?" she asked without looking him in the eye. He nodded, his voice low. "Perfect." From that corner seat, he could see everything. The kitchen window, the tables, the staff moving like pieces in a slow, uncertain rhythm. Two servers laughed behind the bar, scrolling on their phones between orders. Another wiped a clean table for the third time, expression blank. A couple at the window waited for their drinks, watching the rain streak down the glass. Vin leaned back, studying every detail like a director watching a take he couldn't reshoot. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't alive. He sighed quietly. "Ma, what happened here?" Then, a small spark broke through the haze. A young waitress, early 30s, hair pulled into a messy bun, sleeves rolled to the elbows, was kneeling beside an older woman's table, helping her unwrap a takeout meal with patient, gentle hands. "Here you go, Mrs. Porter," she said softly. "Extra napkins, no charge. And the kitchen made your favorite, lemon risotto. Said you've been missing it." The old woman's face lit up, and so did the air around them. Vin smiled behind his beard. There it was. That warmth. That small act of care that could turn an ordinary restaurant into a second home. The waitress's name tag read Maya. He watched as she moved from table to table, smiling for real, not the kind of smile you wear for tips, but the kind you can't fake when you love people. She refilled waters before anyone asked, remembered names, remembered stories. Every guest she spoke to seemed lighter when she left their table. If his mother were still alive, she would have adored this girl. Vin's food arrived, pasta with red sauce, not bad but missing that old spark. He took a bite, watching Maya help a disheveled man near the bar count his change. She spoke to him softly, then disappeared toward the kitchen. When she came back, she wasn't carrying his bill. She was carrying a meal. Vin froze mid-bite. Something was happening, something that would remind him exactly why he built this place in the first place. The door opened with a faint creak, letting in a gust of cold night air and a man who looked like he was carrying the weather on his shoulders. His coat was worn thin, shoes scuffed to the soles, and rain had traced dark trails through his gray hair. The hostess froze mid-smile. "Good evening," the man murmured, his voice quiet, almost apologetic. Is it all right if I sit for a bit?" Vin, from his booth in the corner, set down his fork. He could feel the shift ripple through the room. Conversations paused. Heads turned. A couple near the bar exchanged looks. The kind of silence that hides behind polite smiles. The hostess glanced toward the manager's station, uncertain. We're kind of full tonight," she said, though half the restaurant sat empty. Before the moment could stretch too long, a voice cut through gently. "I'll take care of him." It was Maya. She crossed the floor, her steps light but sure, and smiled at the old man as though he were the most important guest in the room. "Hi there," she said. "You look like you could use something warm. How about we get you seated, yeah?" The man blinked, surprised. Thank you, miss." She led him to a small table by the window, the one Vin's mother had always said was her favorite because it caught the last bit of evening light. Even tonight, with rain streaking the glass, it still looked like a place meant for hope. Maya set down a menu, poured him water, and gave a small nod. "Take your time. I'll be right back." When she turned away, Vin saw the man's trembling hands unfold a handful of coins, quarters, dimes, a few crumpled bills. He spread them carefully on the table like pieces of a fragile secret. He picked up the menu, eyes darting from one line to another. The words might as well have been in another language. Around him, the quiet whispers started. Poor guy must have wandered in. Shouldn't they ask him to leave? This isn't a soup kitchen. Vin's jaw tightened. He could feel his pulse in his fingertips. The hostess hovered near the podium, pretending to check the reservation list, but her eyes stayed locked on the man. The manager peeked out from the kitchen door, frowning. Only Maya seemed untouched by it all. She returned with a gentle smile, kneeling by the man's table like she had all the time in the world. "Find something you like?" she asked softly. He sighed. "I don't think I have enough. Maybe just a coffee, if that's all right." Maya looked down at the coins, then back at him. Her expression softened, the kind of kindness that doesn't need words. "I've got an idea," she whispered. "Don't worry about the bill." Vin leaned forward in his booth, the hum of the restaurant fading around him. Something told him he was about to witness the truest test of what his mother built this place to be. And Maya, without knowing, was about to pass it. Vin hadn't meant to eavesdrop. But some moments don't ask permission to be heard, they just reach across the noise and hold you still. From his corner booth, he watched as Maya leaned toward the elderly man's table. Her voice was soft, but it carried enough for Vin to catch every word. "Hey," she said gently, "I get a shift meal tonight, but honestly, I'm not hungry. Would you help me out and eat it so it doesn't go to waste?" The man's eyes flicked up, uncertain. I can't take your food, miss. Maya smiled, shaking her head. It's just going to sit in the kitchen. You'd be doing me a favor. For a second, the old man hesitated, pride wrestling with hunger. Then, finally, he nodded. If you're sure. I'm sure, she said, and slipped away toward the counter before anyone else could intervene. Vin's gaze followed her as she walked to the register. He saw her pull a few crumpled bills from her apron pocket, small, worn, folded over themselves like they'd already been spent in her mind a dozen times. She handed them to the cashier without a word. The meal total popped up on the screen. Vin's mind did the math automatically. With tips and hourly rate, she'd just given away nearly an hour's pay. For a stranger. The kind of gesture no one notices, and the kind that changes everything. When she returned, Maya set the plate down gently in front of the man, spaghetti and meatballs, steaming under the warm light. Careful, she said, smiling. It's hot. The man stared at it as if he couldn't quite believe it was real. His hands trembled around the fork. Thank you, he whispered. You don't know what this means. Maya pulled out the chair across from him and sat down, unbothered by the stares from other tables. You've got time, she said. Eat slow. Food tastes better that way. Vin felt something in his chest tighten. He watched as she asked the man his name, listened without interrupting, nodded as he spoke about a daughter he hadn't seen in years. The restaurant around them seemed to fade. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the faint jazz, all blurred into a hum. What stood out was the look on Maya's face, real compassion. The kind his mother used to say could feed a person longer than any meal ever could. Vin's phone buzzed quietly in his pocket, an alert from the restaurant's management chat group. He glanced at the screen. Maya still sitting with that guy? Someone tell her breaks aren't charity time. He looked up again. Maya was laughing softly, the old man smiling for the first time that night. Vin leaned back, jaw tightening. Something inside him shifted, protective, deliberate. For the first time in 5 years, he wasn't just an observer. He was about to step in. The dinner crowd had thinned. The hum of conversation was now just the low murmur of plates being stacked and chairs being tucked in for the night. At the corner table, Maya and the elderly man sat facing each other, two silhouettes framed by the glow of a rain-streaked window. Vin watched quietly from his booth, his untouched drink growing warm. The man, Thomas, as she now called him, spoke slowly, his voice gravelly but tender. My wife, Ruth, she used to make Sunday dinners. Every week, without fail. Roast chicken, lemon pie, laughter loud enough to scare the dog. He chuckled softly, but his eyes watered. When she passed, my daughter and I, well, we didn't handle it right. She blamed me for not getting her to the hospital sooner. I blamed myself too. He looked down at his hands, calloused and trembling. Haven't seen her in 3 years. Not a day goes by I don't wish I could take that night back. Maya's eyes softened. She didn't rush to fill the silence. She just listened, nodding slowly, giving him space to breathe. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. I get it. Losing someone, it changes the way the world sounds. Thomas looked up. You lost someone too. Maya hesitated, then exhaled. Not yet, she said. But I'm scared I might. She glanced toward the clock near the kitchen door. My daughter, Sophie, she's 7. Smart as a whip, funny as her dad was. But she's sick. Doctors say it's rare. Some days she's fine. Other days, her voice trailed off. Thomas leaned forward, his old eyes steady. And you still come here, work these hours? Maya smiled faintly. Gotta keep the lights on. She deserves to dream, even when it's hard for me to. He nodded, as if her strength was something sacred. Your girl's lucky to have you. She shrugged, blinking fast. I just want her to remember that love's bigger than what hurts. Vin's throat tightened. Each word landed heavier than the last. He'd opened Louise's table to honor his mother's warmth, but sitting here now, he realized Maya was living it. Thomas took a small bite of his meal, then looked up at her, smiling weakly. You know, this place, it feels like home. Smells like it, too. There's something about it. Maya followed his gaze toward the old family photos on the wall. That's the point, she said softly. Whoever started this place, he built something real. Across the room, Vin froze. For a moment, their eyes almost met, his behind the glasses, hers glinting in the soft light. She didn't recognize him. But something in her expression, grateful, weary, alive, felt achingly familiar. Vin exhaled, his pulse steadying. Tomorrow, he decided, he'd tell her everything. But tonight, he'd let her finish her story. Because some truths deserve to be revealed only when the heart is ready to hear them. When Thomas finally shuffled out into the misty night, Maya walked him to the door. She helped him zip his coat and slipped a paper bag into his hand. Leftovers, no doubt. The man smiled through tears, mouthing a thank you before disappearing into the rain. Vin watched the door close behind him. The warmth he felt in his chest was tangled with something colder, curiosity, maybe guilt. How had he never heard about this waitress before? Someone living his mother's philosophy, right under his nose. He waited until Maya clocked out and disappeared into the back hallway, her tired steps fading past the kitchen door. Then he stood, slid a few bills under his empty plate, and approached the bar. The bartender glanced up. You need anything else, sir? Just a little information, Vin said, keeping his voice low and calm. That waitress, Maya. How long she been here? The man shrugged. Couple of years. Good worker, bit too soft-hearted for this business. Vin tilted his head. What do you mean? She's the kind that gives free soup to anyone who looks cold, the bartender said, polishing a glass. Pays out of pocket half the time. We tell her to stop, but she doesn't listen. From the kitchen doorway, the manager appeared, mid-40s, sleeves rolled, clipboard in hand. You talking about Maya again? He said, half joking, half tired. Vin turned toward him. Seems like she's well liked. The manager sighed. She's got heart, I'll give her that. Works doubles every other week. Says she's saving for her kids' treatments. Sweet girl, 7 years old, Lily, I think. Rare autoimmune thing. He shook his head. Breaks your heart, but you can't run a business on good intentions. I've been close to letting her go a few times. She gives away too much. The words hit Vin like a slow echo, rare autoimmune disease. His breath caught. His mother's voice rose in his mind. Family isn't just who you're born to, it's who you show up for. He gripped the edge of the counter. You said, rare disease? The manager nodded. Yeah. Doctors at St. Grace Hospital, I think. Costs a fortune. She's doing everything she can. Single mom, no safety net. Vin stared past him, eyes fixed on the framed photo of Louise's table on the opening night. His mother's favorite flower, a white lily, was in the vase at the center of the photo. Lily. The room suddenly felt smaller. The sound of clinking dishes and soft chatter faded into a dull hum. He realized this wasn't coincidence. It was connection, something deeper, something meant. The manager checked his watch. Look, she's probably locking up now if you wanted to thank her or something. But she's not taking charity. Trust me. Vin nodded absently, already moving toward the back hallway. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, low and steady. He pushed open the kitchen door just as Maya appeared at the other end, raincoat over her uniform, ready to leave. For a heartbeat, their eyes met, his hidden behind the glasses, hers weary but kind. Vin took a slow breath. It was time. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time Maya stepped into the parking lot, the neon sign of Louise's table reflecting across puddles like ripples of gold. She pulled her jacket tighter and balanced her worn tote on one shoulder. The night smelled of wet asphalt and cooling bread. Vin stood in the shadow near the far end of the lot, heart pounding harder than it should have. He had faced cameras, crowds, stunts, but this moment felt different. This wasn't a scene. It was real. He watched her unlock her old sedan, tired movements heavy from another double shift. He almost turned back. Almost decided to leave things as they were. But then he remembered the review that had started all this. Used to feel like family here. No, he thought. She deserved to know she'd brought that family back. Maya, he called softly. She turned, startled. Her hand tightened around her keys. Did you forget something inside? Vin stepped closer, the gravel crunching under his boots. No. I just wanted to talk to you for a minute. The parking lot lights caught his glasses and beard. Maya squinted, uncertain. Then, slowly, he reached up and pulled both away, the beard first, then the cap, then the glasses. Her eyes widened. Oh my God. Vin managed a small, nervous smile. Yeah. I know it's a little weird. You're him. Her voice trembled. Vin Diesel. He nodded once. And also the guy who built this place. Maya's face drained of color. Oh no. Did I do something wrong? I swear, I didn't mean to. Vin held up a hand, gentle. You didn't do anything wrong. She blinked fast, tears threatening. You're not firing me, are you? He shook his head. Firing you? Maya, you reminded me why this restaurant exists in the first place. The rain started again, soft and steady. Vin looked toward the glowing windows. When my mother died, I promised her I'd build a place that felt like home. A place that fed people's hearts as much as their stomachs. But somewhere along the line, I stopped checking if that promise was still alive. He met her eyes. Tonight, I saw it again. In you. Maya swallowed hard. I was just trying to help. He looked hungry. That's exactly it, Vin said. You didn't do it for credit. You did it because you care. She let out a shaky laugh. Most people think I care too much. Then they've never met my mom, Vin replied softly. You're the kind of person she built this for. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The rain whispered between them. Finally, Vin took a step closer. Maya, there's something else I need to tell you, something that might change everything for both of us. Her eyes widened again, half hopeful, half afraid. Vin hesitated, his mother's words echoing in his mind. When you find someone who gives without expecting, build around them. He exhaled. Tomorrow, come in a little early. I've got an idea. Maya nodded slowly, confusion mixing with wonder. As she got into her car and drove off, Vin stood in the rain, watching the taillights fade. He already knew what he was going to do. The next morning, sunlight broke through the clouds over Rosewood, painting the rain-washed streets in soft gold. Inside Louise's table, the air smelled of fresh coffee and baked focaccia. The restaurant was quiet, only the hum of the fridge and the faint tick of the wall clock filling the space. Maya stood near the counter, her apron folded in her hands, eyes still red from last night's shock. She hadn't told anyone that Vin Diesel, the Vin Diesel, had spoken to her in the parking lot. It sounded too impossible to be real. But when the door opened and he stepped in, no disguise this time, the truth walked in with him. Maya, he said gently, motioning toward the booth by the window, the same one where she'd fed Thomas. Sit with me for a second. She hesitated, nervous, then slid into the seat across from him. I've been thinking about what you did, Vin began. Not just last night, but every night you've been here. The way you treat people, it's exactly what this place was meant to be. She looked down, embarrassed. I just try to do the right thing. That's why I want you to help me run it, he said. Maya blinked. Run it? Vin nodded. You're looking at your new business partner. 10% ownership, effective immediately. Her mouth opened, then closed again. That's, Vin, I can't. Yes, you can, he interrupted softly. Because you already have. You've been giving more heart to this restaurant than anyone else, including me. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't know what to say. Just say yes. She laughed, a shaky sound that filled the room like light breaking through clouds. Yes. By noon, the changes had already begun. The dismissive manager was gone, escorted out quietly after a short, calm conversation that ended with Vin's simple line, "We don't serve food here. We serve people." A sign went up on the front door that afternoon. Family night, pay what you can, every Thursday. No questions. No judgment. Just dinner. Word spread faster than the aroma of garlic knots on a busy night. Within a week, lines formed outside. Families who couldn't afford to eat out came in smiling. Strangers left with leftovers and stories. And when the foundation was announced, the Louisa Foundation for Families in Need, it made the local news. Donations poured in. Grants followed. And the very first beneficiary was a little girl named Lily, who'd soon begin a treatment plan that might change her future. For the first time in years, Vin felt the same peace he'd known on opening night. Only now, it wasn't quiet pride, it was living purpose. That evening, as the restaurant filled with laughter and the glow of candles, Vin stood by the window, watching Maya hug Lily near the door. He smiled, then noticed an envelope tucked beneath his coffee cup, his name written in looping handwriting. It wasn't Maya's. It looked older. Familiar. Vin picked it up, heart skipping a beat as he unfolded it. The signature at the bottom read, Louisa. 6 months later, Louisa's table was no longer just a restaurant. It had become the heartbeat of Rosewood. The front door bell never stopped ringing. Laughter filled the air like music, and every Thursday night, the handwritten sign still hung proudly in the window. Family night, pay what you can. What started as one woman's kindness had grown into a movement. People didn't just come to eat, they came to belong. It was a warm spring evening, the kind of night that smelled of fresh herbs and second chances. Every table was full. At the center of it all, Maya stood smiling, an apron tied loosely around her waist. Her daughter, Lily, now stronger, giggled as she carried a basket of bread rolls from table to table. Vin watched from the corner, pride softening every line in his face. Lily's cheeks glowed with color again, her treatment working better than anyone had dared hope. And Maya, once tired and unsure, now moved through the restaurant like she'd been born to lead it. Table 7 needs refills, Lily whispered to her mother, half serious, half proud. Maya grinned. Look at you, bossing me around already. Vin laughed quietly. The sound felt easy now. Light. The kind of laugh his mother used to have after a long night in her own kitchen. Halfway through the evening, the door opened, and a familiar figure stepped in. Thomas. His clothes cleaner now, his eyes brighter. And beside him, holding his arm, was a woman in her 40s with the same green eyes as his. His daughter. They paused at the entrance, overwhelmed by the noise, the warmth, the smell of garlic and hope. Maya spotted them first. Thomas. You made it. He smiled. Told you I would. And I brought someone. When Maya hugged them both, Vin felt the last thread of doubt in his chest dissolve. Thomas had found his family again. Lily was healing. The community was stronger. And he realized, this wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It was everything his mother had dreamed of. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the lights had dimmed, Vin stood alone by the window, watching the reflection of the dining room behind him, empty tables, clean dishes, quiet peace. He took out the letter he'd found months ago, the one signed Louisa, and read the last line again. If you ever forget why you started, look for kindness. That's where I'll be. Vin smiled, his eyes wet but calm. He wasn't looking anymore. He'd found it. And as the camera of life pulls back from Louisa's table, the light still glowing through the windows, the laughter echoing faintly down the street, one truth remains. Family isn't always blood. It's the people who show up when it matters most. Thank you for staying until the very end. For watching, for feeling, and for believing that kindness still builds the strongest stories.